What are they putting in charge of that? It's Tuesday, it's time to watch the chair. Hey, how are you, Amy? Good to see you.
Out the door. By the hall.
I got to do have to talk to you now. Yeah, offers, offer boards, but we are for the GED, drama We were. Where did you come from? I know there's supposed to be, somebody else, the other group, I think that's been tomorrow. No, no, the old one. Kind of old workshop. They're spread.
Well, the email, I'm gonna put email, have to look at it, just says for Alice, but I don't know if she the original was.
Yeah, no, our board members are, we brought it up, I brought it up, because it's out here. And so my friend said, but we didn't have to start before. That'd be helpful.
I was looking at it.
I guess I would find out first.
So you got everybody going on the email.
It just said,
Right.
That's probably it. What's proposed? What's budgeted?
Oh, okay.
As far as 16, so.
But that's,
The GED requirement is just out there. The only thing that happens, unfortunately, and it was anything on board nursing, so even if you're hired, you still have to pick it.
right, would be limited.
So it's a business decision, you know?
oh, it's really,
It's hard because that means that someone's going to be fully certified, delegated, they're going to have to be people. They may not be workers. It's just a different business. And we want every provider is just right now. Or 50-year-old is really good.
There's that waiver thing you can do for a year.
Yeah,
But
it's
that's
for
only a year, right? So they bond the person.
that's a something that we track, take them in that way.
I 100% think that would be a good one.
Now, waivers don't tax for citizens.
But they can still be in school.
They still have to ask permission from the parents.
Oh, okay.
And we're cool with concepts, myself, personally. And I think that's what it works.
How do you run background checks on a minor? Because
I know, it's
minor
tough.
never get it.
Right? So it's not to get limited. You're taking a risk.
Okay, well, good. Well, that was
Everything
good.
is risk, so.
Your updates, two updates.
Yeah.
And then I want to check in with you
You're gonna get responsibility
on,
on your response.
So I hate those
Yes.
CPT issue is good. We need to discuss it.
which issue?
That's have providers access to it.
Nobody wants it to do it.
There's a lot of projects.
No, our providers do. We can offer
We had
it.
one that did it for a while and then they quit.
So I asked Chris, do we have access? He said, yeah. We have limited access. We can view, I can view early or something.
You can view, we can have edit access. Nobody wants it.
Well,
I don't want the edit requirement to be this. About four firefighters all day, they have no idea how to get the system. So that's
the
what
problem
it'll come and push.
is your fellow county board. That's the problem. You got county boards, why do you include providers in this whole process? Oh, you have to be trained.
We don't have any information on this training. Now, we knew initially, we knew Catholic Residential and of course Chris were trained first. They're the only people I know that ever did it now, Catholic Residential. And then
Oh, it's up to providers to do it.
nobody else. We've offered. We
I don't
tried.
think,
The reason I don't want to get it added as a requirement is he's proposing, like, what Gary was talking about was proposing to add a component in there where both the county board and the fire have to go and click a button saying they agree. But when you go over, we cannot have that. That would come to a screaming halt.
it would. So there's where the problem is. Figure it out.
I think
Because
there should be some
you have
mechanism to show
providers
that
like
you agree.
CMI, you have somebody like Scott, who's one of the counties that will sit down with the person.
But my thing is the system is not the way it's solved. That has to be solved outside of the CPT.
Yes.
The CPT, fixing, putting something in the CPT to control that is not. So my question for you today though is, when you get the one side in, or so it's they're fine. I agree wholeheartedly with that. I just think CPT would,
Just explain where
it needs to happen.
Say, listen, we're not getting that, that's fine. We're not getting providers that are trained. But if that's the case,
We don't object to it.
where's the line? Where's the
I
line?
just, I don't want to force it as a requirement.
So maybe it's more of.
It's already available. It's changed.
How are you doing?
But as far as, the site in there, we're talking about Leominster, Warren, did we do a full month of there? I know we changed. I know in the first 2 weeks of February.
You want to add more?
Well, we want to get a full month in and then have him look at it and see if he's ready, we're ready, we'll do some more because we don't want to you guys get our procedures finalized and start with everybody else. So we don't waste any more.
I'm
He said
really,
there's no problem, it's coming.
I
We're going
said,
to install it.
I said to him, it's gonna be your, you gotta tell me when you're ready. And I'm gonna call it. So whatever you guys are.
They sounded like they were.
March, which makes sense.
So how much longer do you want to wait for it?
You're not gonna get,
Tell people probably get in contact with March or April dates. Next thing we do is get our schedule ready and send that. I know.
so you're not gonna get pushback from me. It's really whatever you and Chris decide.
We'll check in with them. Alright. But did our other comments make sense? Some of them there that you looked at where I highlighted in yellow because it was like we were talking about old DRAs.
Yes, why are we talking?
We're not doing this still. Why would we do this?
But that's a big issue, that's setback in part where it is in your guidance, you know, to the environment. Yeah, I agree with that.
You're like, what is this?
The only issue I got out of this is again, we just need to figure out how we want to present it. It sounds like you're not against it, they still can do it now. They have to go through training.
They have permission, but nobody wants to do it, so I don't want to.
All right, well, welcome everybody. Thanks for being here this morning, and hello to whoever's virtually joining us. We have a really packed agenda this morning and lots of important stuff to share with you, so we will try to be efficient with going through things, but there's a lot of good stuff to cover. I'm going to go through the agenda really quickly, and we're going to move the funds management, which is later in the agenda, up a little bit to accommodate one of our colleagues who's not feeling well this morning. Thanks for being here, though. So Jamie's going to start with a state update. We're going to talk about the funds management. We're going to do a new My Plan assessment and just give you a brief overview of that, and then also welcome your comments on that. We need some feedback on something we've been working on hard over the last couple of months. Well, more than that. We have a new family engagement role, so we're going to introduce our new family engagement coordinator to you. MUI rule training updates. We're going to talk about the monthly rate calculator and some other things, focus areas for 2019 for the SSA world. EVV and provider search, North Star Pathways project, and any other announcements you might have at the end of the meeting today. I also want to remind you at the end, we've been trying to offer time for you to network and mingle so you can get to know one another. So I'd encourage you, if you have the time, please stay with us. And also the quality team is going to start being available after these forums. So if you have particular questions and you want consultation from anybody on the quality team, they will be in the room right behind us here. So welcome everybody, and Jamie, you want to come and talk about updates? And watch the, there's a little cord
Yeah.
here too.
Hello, everybody. Who's the one sick? All right, we'll stay back from here. That's all right. All right, so it's kind of complicated, the state budget right now. There's not a lot to present to you, but I'm just going to get an overview. A lot of you probably already know this. So right now we have, there was a budget proposed by the old administration. It was a flat budget that was John Martin, Director John Martin, and Governor Kasich. So there was a budget that was, right before they left office, a budget was put out there. It was a flat budget. In fact, some departments, it was projected to be cut, okay? That happens every time, so don't freak out about that. That's just the way that the state works. But when the new administration came in, there's this period of time, approximately about a month and a half, where every department has to come up with an additional budget. You know, what they want to propose to the governor. The governor needs to approve or disapprove that because his budget is due next week, okay? So that's where we're at. We're in this kind of a limbo period, meaning we don't have a lot of control over what's happening now. The department submitted a budget to the governor that increases DSP wages. Now this is just their budget now, okay? There's another part where if we don't agree to it, we can fight for more, okay? So the director proposed, it's a little bit over $1 more per hour to the overall HPC rate. It's around $12.60 per hour, so you know. Right now it's, we're about $11.40 statewide average DSP wage, something like that. And it's about approximately $1 an hour that the department submitted to the governor. He also, this is a big deal, how many people do on-site on-call? All right, lots of us. Me too. He also submitted bringing on-site on-call up to minimum wage. Okay, if you know, I'm sure if you look at your financials, you'll realize with on-site on-call, we're paying people $8 an hour, whatever it is, $7 an hour, and we're only getting reimbursed like 5. So we lose. It's a lose-lose situation. It's a horrible business concept, but that's what we've been faced with for years and years and years. So if you bring that up to minimum wage, we're already losing, right? We're already paying it. You bring it up to minimum wage that the state is helping us pay for. We actually will have some savings there, all right? Because we're not losing anymore, per se. So that's another thing that the department put in, which is great. There's another thing on ICFs. How many ICF providers we have? Mark, maybe Mark, you guys. It's basically to keep. If you remember in the ICF situation, you guys negotiated a rate last year, or almost a full year ago. Then they came back. Director Martin came back and said, "Hey, we don't have the money for it." Right? Director Davis is, and you know this, Director Davis is saying, let the formula roll, so don't change anything. We'll find the money. So that money that has to be found is in his budget to the governor, which is great. The other big one now, so we're looking, as far as Director Davis is doing, we're up in the HPC rate. We're going to do savings and on-site on-call. And then the last one is non-medical transportation. The county boards and providers and have been negotiating this for over about a year and a half, trying to come up with a way of increasing the NMT rate, non-medical transportation rate. And there's a proposal out there. So Director Davis is basically saying, let's fund this proposal. There's like a gap of $5 million that needs to be found. That's another way of savings. If you're a private provider, you will do better on non-medical transportation if that's adopted. Okay, so just out of the gate with the director's budget, we may, as a provider, you're looking at some increases in your funding, which is a good thing. Now, we should find out if Director Davis is really my friend. He promised that he would tell me how it goes. He'll find out today if what the governor slashed from his proposals. Then I can't tell anybody. I probably can't tell anybody, but I'll know. I'll know. But that's important. We need, as soon as the governor's budget drops, we'll know what we have to fight for. Okay, that's when everything ramps up from our provider organizations, from all of us, and what we can do. Because we'll see what he cut. Hopefully, you submit 4 things and he takes 1 of them. Hopefully it's something. But in the past, governors just slashed it all. We know there's odds against us. Although Governor DeWine's been very good to us so far, it seems like a really nice guy, his priorities are not DD. He's pretty out there. It's children and opioid crisis and something to do with the lake, which in Cincinnati, we're far away from the lake. But I'm sure there's real issues. But the point is, we're not his priority. So he could reject everything Director Davis put up. He could accept some of it. We hope he does. That makes our job easier in fighting for the budget. So what happens is we look at that. Okay, what did he reject? What did he agree to? And then we get our game plan together to go lobby the legislature for additional funds for other budget items. Because the legislature has a hand in the budget process, right? It's just not in. The governor puts it out there. It goes through many changes through the House and then the Senate, and then back to the governor, and those changes are the things we can influence, hopefully. So that's what we're fighting for. Those are the main things. On top of that, do we have a day services provider? All right. On top of that, hey, we will, I know Opera, there's other provider organizations in Ohio, but I know Opera, the one I'm involved in, will be pushing for direct care wages increase across the board. So day services, homemaker personal care, we may even, not sure yet, we may even ask for increases in HBC and ICFs too. So we may come up with a different agenda once we see what the governor does. Does that make sense? So there's not a lot to, we're in this last, in some ways, the last part of the first budget strategy, and then we start the real game after this. Question? Somebody? Mark?
Just a couple comments.
Yeah.
Yesterday, we had advocacy day in Columbus.
Yeah.
I felt it was a huge success.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, at first I thought it was a terrible decision. It was like trying to speak to legislators on the same day, the state of Rush is coming out. But it did give everybody, every legislator,
They were there, yeah.
and they were pressed to the T to make sure that they impressed people. But at the end of the day, we were able to get to most of the people we talked to and actually talk to legislators. So they're sympathetic of our cause and what we're trying to talk about as far as staffing prices.
Right.
So one of the things that was a overriding message is I asked everybody in this audience to know your state legislature.
Absolutely.
You haven't had a personal conversation, I'm talking about 5 touches with that legislator, talk through real issues with them. Just sharing Warren County, Mason area, Senator Lips.
Yeah.
He's a tremendous advocate.
Yeah, he loves our field.
He loves our field. He spoke yesterday to us a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think there's some good points there. The last thing.
If you have, on Senator Lips, if you have never met the guy, you gotta go meet him. This guy is wild.
And you know who he is.
And he wears his belt buckle, and it's kind of weird. Big old lips on his belt buckle, weird, but,
His tie always has lips on it.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know who he is.
But he loves our field, which is great.
Yes, he does. And again, 2 points I want to make is, one, around March 15th, budget is supposed to be actually
Drop.
out. But the second issue is, once we know the legislative schedule as far as testimony and hearings, please watch your emails, because we're going to ask people across the state, if you care about the crisis in Ohio, if you care about the staffing issues and problems, you've got to get families, you've got to get your individuals there, you've got to sit there and actually be present and say, hey, this matters. And change the heart and mind for those legislators when they're voting for opioids and children and everything else. It all matters, but at the end of the day, there's only so much money in the pocket there.
That's right.
So we've got to make this a priority out here. So Bridge to Equality is planning another quick event around the legislative process.
Okay.
And we need to try to get a group, a large group, packed in the hall so they can see what the big issue here within the state of Ohio.
Yep.
Taking the prices, they don't know the prices.
Yep.
Send us flyers if you happen to that event, we'll distribute them.
Yeah, so it's good, yeah, thanks, Mark. As Mark said, I told you the plan for our plan, right? We gotta see what the governor does with our budget. Well, so is aging's looking at it, so is mental health, so is every other people that, organization or groups that want to tap into those funds. So we gotta be on our game and overwhelm them with people and overwhelm them with hopefully a consistent message. That's gonna be the most important. The most consistent message we all can agree on, which will lead me to my last point, is that the DSP crisis is real and it affects every part of our system, including obviously down to the most important part of our system is the people that use our services. So that consistent message needs to be told to legislators overwhelmingly. The last part, the thing I want to report on is something unique happened this year, which apparently has never happened. And that during this part where the director is submitting a budget to the governor is, in the past, provider organizations such as OPRA or the County Board Association, which represents county boards, or other provider organizations, may have had an impact on that director and what he's submitting. Does that make sense? But in most cases, the department just submitted what they think they could do, right? This time around, to show you the unification around the DSP crisis, is something happened which I was glad to be a part of, but it was pretty wild. The County Board Association, representing county boards, OPRA, the Waiver Network, which represents providers, Faith and Values Alliance, which Becky's part of, which represents providers. Ohio Healthcare, which is a big association which represents nursing homes and IDD providers. I think I got all of them. ARC Ohio, which represents families and individuals with disabilities. All got together and tried to see what can we agree on. And we all agreed that the DSP crisis is the major #1 priority. County boards did, right? That's their #1 priority. That's big. The on-site on-call issue, the MNT issue, everyone agreed to. There were a couple issues that we that aren't really our issues, but are county board issues that we agreed to, which is, kind of amazing. So we wrote a letter, put all of our logos on there, signed all of our representatives, and sent it to the governor 2 weeks ago. So we basically supported Director Davis's budget ask, but more so, in a unified front. Listen, there's not a break here on these issues. There are some things we couldn't agree on, like day services rates. That's not in there. But that doesn't mean that groups like us aren't going to try to fight for it. Okay? So that's big. So we're as unified as we've ever been, which is great, meaning county boards and providers. And we have so far, a very friendly face in the department, and Director Davis, and everything's looking positive as far as some good initiatives. That doesn't mean we're not going to have to fight. And a very friendly face in Medicaid, right? So Maureen Corcoran is, Jeff Davis used to be the CEO for a very short period of time, but he worked for Opera for a long, long time, which is great. So he understands the provider issues. Maureen Corcoran used to be the CEO of Opera years ago, so she really understands provider issues, which is great. So Gold Standard, one last thing, Gold Standard group had talked about, it was presented the other day by the County Board Levy Committee, a couple people that are helping, I'm included on that, helping with the County Board Levy, that we're thinking about having an event where if we can bring all Director Miller from OOD, Director Davis from IDD, and Maureen Corcoran from Medicaid come down, maybe a big event down at St. Joe's because they got a lot of room. So we'll stay tuned for that. That would be a big thing. If we could have them down here right before our levy during campaign, talking about system change in our area, but also supporting our levy, which would be great. So stay tuned for that. That's all I got.
Hi, I am Karen Sherman, and I manage our quality and performance team. And I'm going to be discussing funds management a little bit, and I invited 2 providers to share what they're doing along with me. Amy Polkan from CSI is here, and they provide residential services for a large number of people, and they also do money management. And Ashley Metz is here from MetzCore. She is an adult day array provider, and they're pretty medium to large in size as well. So before we get started, I'm going to take a little pull from Eric, who's like more sentimental, feely than I normally am in my black and white world. Before we think about funds management, I ask you to sort of think back at a time before you had your first job. So thinking, maybe 15, about that age where you could start working, thinking about, how much am I going to make? Like, when I get my first paycheck, how much will that be? What will I be able to do with my money? Do you guys remember those types of thoughts back in the day? I remember getting my lifeguard license. I was probably 15 or 16, I'm not sure the age requirements, but I was young. And I remember thinking, oh my God, it's gonna be so much money and here's what I'm gonna do with it, right? It wasn't a lot of money, but it was something, right? And as you think through this presentation, I want you to think about the individuals we support, because lots of them earn income, they make income, they get Social Security, but a lot of times they aren't really included in the thoughts about where that money is going, what's gonna be purchased, long-term planning. And lots of times it's because historically, they have had no concept of it. But I encourage you to think How can we make sure people understand money more? Dream about their future, how things will be spent. So now that I've had my Eric moment, I'll go into the black and white stuff. All right, so as we go through this presentation, we are going to share sort of about what is personal funds, because I don't think we always had a clear concept of it, and as a result, we've had some citations because we've been unclear in the plan, which has probably caused some confusion on your end. So we'll talk about next steps to sort of clear that up. We'll also look at examples and scenarios, so hopefully you'll be thinking of things differently, like, oh, I had a situation that applied to, maybe I should have tracked this differently. And then probably will not have much time to think about the future, but as we think of technology, the more we can start having conversations with people. I mean, the smartphone fits in your pocket and it could do amazing things. For people that may not have a concept of money, perhaps at some point they could scan a barcode and figure out if they have it in their budget to buy something. All right, so when I think about key to safeguarding funds, I think that the team needs to have a clear picture of what the plan means and a clear understanding of a provider's responsibility to support individuals spending their funds in the My Plan. So I think it's sort of a three-prong approach that hopefully takes place through the My Plan. All right, so I think with personal funds, there's a lot of times some confusion because some providers are paid for individuals, some providers provide money management, but with personal funds, I would guess that most providers out there help an individual with personal funds. So personal funds is not a separate waiver service. It's any money that's remaining from earned income plus unearned income, any money that's remaining after the essential items are spent. So as you are even providing drop-in support, if you meet an individual's family members and they give you $20 and you take the $20 and help an individual go to the movie, go out to dinner, that is helping with personal funds. All right. As I mentioned sort of in my intro, we believe that everybody should have the opportunity to be involved to the extent that they are interested and the extent that's possible to be involved with their funds. The other thing that we are working on, we'll talk in a little bit, April 1st we are rolling out a new ISP. And so our current funds management's pretty vague. It just doesn't really cover across serving settings what might be needed. So when you look at our new assessment tool, you will see that there's more clear parameters. So if somebody goes into respite, what happens to the funds that they take with them? Can they just keep it in their pocket and they're safe, or does the provider need to support them as they go out and do things and keep track of it? I think HPC, participant directed HPC, there will also be some clarity around there. And another area that our plan hasn't addressed, because if you think about when our plan was developed 5 years ago, ADA programs were still mainly center-based. They weren't to go out doing community activities. So because you guys have done an amazing job offering community integration, there's now a need to add some more clarification in the plan about how a provider will support someone as they go out and do their ADA activities in the community, because a lot of times money is involved. All right, so hopefully by the new assessment you'll see that we are trying to develop a more clear and concise My Plan that demonstrates what supports a person will need across service settings. This is what the new assessment will look like, and we are actually uploading it to the provider page, so hamiltondds.org/providers. If you click on communications, it will be posted under the memo settings, so you can see it in full form and in more detail. What this plan tries to highlight is the essential rule requirements, but it's also more strength-based. What do I like to do with my money? What are my dreams? How can I participate in managing my personal funds? What can I do on my own? And then it also talks about how I should receive my funds. Like, what will a provider do to help me receive my funds while I'm at my ADA program? I think that is... It also covers, like, the Ohio Direction Card, and who's helping with food stamps, anything else in that area. So which provider is responsible if there is someone. All right, some of your responsibilities, things that providers more frequent citation in the area of funds management is that a provider does not have a policy about managing personal funds and a system for monitoring such. And also, you need to have documentation that people that are assisting with personal funds have been trained on the policy. So, our first scenario, Dawn. Dawn has an independent provider that assists her in managing her personal funds. Since she receives HPC from an independent provider, does reconciliation need to take place? What are you thinking? Crickets. I'm okay with silence. That is a yes.
Yes.
Yep, so, lots of times independent providers don't think that it's necessary because who's gonna do it? OPSAR recommends a neighbor, family member, someone else just to confirm that funds aren't missing. In other areas of provider responsibilities, funds should be deposited within 5 days. A summary of transactions must be made available to the team upon request. If somebody requests personal funds, they must be made available within 3 days. You have to have a system of monitoring in place, and funds cannot be commingled with the provider's funds, so there needs to be a separate account for individuals' funds. All right, you guys ready for another scenario? With a little more enthusiasm. All right, I'll try. Thank you. Thanks, Jamie. All right, Clark is able to manage $5 independently. Over the holidays, he receives a $75 gift card for Kohl's from a family member. With support from his provider, he spends $65 of funds on the gift card. Does the provider need to keep documentation of the gift card expenditures?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. Oh my God, you guys just warmed my heart. That is true. I know. I just want to put a snapshot. We do offer documentation on the provider website as well, hamiltoncountydds.org/providers under compliance. So this is our documentation. It meets the requirements. So feel free to use it if you want, or use it to develop your own, or if you do not have something that you readily use.
Do you have
All right.
sample policies at all?
We don't, but feel free to reach out for us for what we might be able to reach
Well,
out
I
to.
have one.
You got one?
For people who, maybe, that's a hard thing for some.
It is. Thank you, Jamie. All right, the next scenario. Taking the previous scenario a little bit farther, Clark receives $10 in Kohl's cash for his purchase. Does the provider need to keep documentation for use of the Kohl's cash?
Yeah.
Actually, OPSAR would say no on this one. So they would, if somebody is spending like a huge amount of Kohl's, they might say, so what do you do with your Kohl's cash? And if the individual's like, my provider spends it, that's gonna be an issue. But they're not asking you to keep documentation, which really helps you guys out, because, with like Kroger Plus cards, it can get complicated. Staff should still not be using those, but you don't have to keep documentation of the points.
I would recommend keeping documentation from anyone's
Yeah.
perspective,
Yes. Yes.
Trying to save you guys.
Yes.
All right, the other area that we see a lot of citations in is the area of reconciliation. So someone other than the person directly handling the funds needs to reconcile the funds every 30 calendar days. So making sure that the 30 calendar days is met and that there's an outside person doing the reconciliation. And this extra bullet point was left from a previous presentation, so sorry about that. Amy Polkamp's gonna take over from CSI, and then Ashley Metz from MetScore.
Hey, Karen.
Yeah.
Who does reconciliation for an independent provider?
It can be anyone. It can be family member, minister, neighbor.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna go over a little bit about tips for funds management success, and there are 4 key areas that I consider. The first is having a system for reporting wages and paying bills for individual support as payees. The second is to have detailed ledgers. The third is to ensure that personal funds are spent or distributed as expected. And the fourth is to have timely reconciliation. Okay, so I'm gonna start with ensuring personal funds are spent and distributed as expected. So as a representative payee, you need to make sure that the day-to-day needs for the individuals are met first for food and shelter. So that includes things such as rent, utilities, food, personal care, and laundry. Then after that, you need to make sure that the beneficiary's medical or dental needs are met, anything that is not covered by insurance. And then you can use the money for personal needs such as clothing and recreation. After that, you can save the rest. You always want to consult the My Plan to determine how much the individual can manage at one time. You want to consult with the team and the individual to determine whether the monthly personal and food money should be given weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, and everyone's different. This is going to depend on the individual, and it's a team collaboration. The individual always must sign a receipt of funds, so anytime they receive cash, you need to have documentation that the individual received that cash and have them sign a receipt of funds. And if money is given to the staff on behalf of the individual, for grocery shopping or for personal needs, the staff always need to sign a receipt of funds and provide receipts for all funds that have been spent. Leftover funds always need to be returned to the account. The second and third thing that I'm going to go over are the system for reporting wages, paying bills, and having detailed ledgers. So this is an example of our ledger. For CSI, we use a collective account in which all of our individuals' benefits are deposited collectively into one account. We use software that was recommended to us by Social Security. It's called Representative Payee Manager, and this allows us to keep track of individual accounts as well as collective accounts. The program separates each individual's funds and transactions. So we currently use a check-based system in which our finance manager is to use a check directly to the individual or the staff, depending on what's written in the My Plan. Receipts are then given to our program coordinator to process the finance folder for the month. All receipts need to be logged on a cash on hand ledger, and the cash on hand ledger needs to show deposits, withdrawals, staff signatures, and receipts accounting for all money spent. The finances should also include copies of bills, such as rent receipts, Duke bill, things like that, copies of paycheck stubs if the individual works, with verification that the paychecks were sent to Social Security, well, the paycheck stubs were sent to Social Security, and the monthly ledger. So it's really important to always make sure that you're promptly sending in, reporting wages to Social Security, because this can greatly affect a person's SSI. Social Security has a tendency to overestimate wages if you are not reporting them. I've had cases where an individual makes $100 a month, which would only affect the person's SSI by a few dollars. But if you don't report it on time, they're going to estimate the wages to be around $300 or $400. So that is going to greatly affect the person's SSI, which can affect their budget, and you might not be able to pay their bills because you're not reporting their wages and they're getting $200 less in SSI. So it's really important to always do that. So this is an example of the ledger. So the ledger clearly shows all deposits, withdrawals, bills paid, how much cash was given to the staff or to the individual, any rent, medical bills, etc. And the ledger will show the balance after each transaction. We are in the process of switching to a debit card system rather than a check-based system. So each individual is going to have their own debit card, and that can be used at a point of sale or an ATM to get cash back if they'd like. The finance manager is going to add money to the debit card according to what's listed in the My Plan. And this is going to help eliminate checks being lost in the mail, which we have a lot of issues with the post office. So we have a lot of our individuals where we mail a check out and they don't receive it. That ends up costing a lot of money because we have to place a stop payment on the check. So it can be a big mess. So we're hoping that the debit card system is really going to be effective. So going back to our software that we use, it has a feature for doing a report to identify balances for each client that are close to the Medicaid and SSI limit. So you can take action if you need to, if they're getting close to the limit, the resource limit. And it also allows you to set up scheduled transactions for rent, weekly checks, etc. It's going to also allow you to easily do a report for the amount of money spent on each category for a specific time frame. So Social Security requires representative payees to fill out representative payee reports, in which you have to let Social Security know exactly how much money you spent on food and shelter and how much money you spent on personal items such as clothing, recreation, and medical bills. So this program allows you to easily pull up that information and get the totals very quickly. So, the fourth area that we are going to talk about is timely reconciliation. So for our system, after the program coordinator gathers all the information and documentation necessary for the monthly finance folder, they're going to turn that into the program manager for review. The program manager is then going to review that and then submit that to our finance director, who reviews that for the final review. Finance director is going to reconcile the account on a monthly basis, and finance director submits the reconciliation to the executive director for final review. So as you can see, we have a lot of checks and balances in place to prevent any misappropriation. Reconciliation of the account should always happen within 30 days, as Karen said. Okay. So this is another scenario. So Todd just moved into an apartment and does not have much furniture. His provider has a couch, but they want $50 for the piece of furniture. Can the provider sell the couch to Todd? What does anyone think? No. No? The answer is actually yes, but the transaction must be approved, or I'm sorry, the transaction must be authorized in advance in writing by the team. So it actually goes both ways. The individual can also sell an item to the provider, but the agreement must be approved in writing prior to the transaction. Jen receives adult shared living. She really wants to go over to her friend's house, but her adult shared living provider is out of gas and is short on cash. Can Jen loan her provider $5 to put a few gallons in the tank so she can get across town? No. Yes or no? No. Right, so. Right, so the answer, the correct answer is no. So beyond being unethical, it's prohibited by the personal funds rule. So repayment would be expected if the individual has a loss of funds due to the provider's failure to implement the ISP or follow the policy. Repayment is expected.
There is one small caveat to this. Be sure to work with MUI on the repayment because they may ask that the repayment is delayed because that could potentially stop the prosecution of the staff member. So before you repay, make sure you confirm that with Jenny's team. I learned that last week, sorry.
Okay, so in the case of a termination of a provider, within 5 days, the provider needs to release the balance of cash after deducting actual or estimated expenditures. And within 14 days, an itemized statement of personal funds and any remaining funds must be made available by the provider.
All right, so for our last scenario, George is on a level, thank you so much, Amy. George is on a level and waiver and receives adult day support at Goodwill. George's parents are his payee and he manages $5 at one time. His parents are sent in $20 with him each Monday for opportunities in which he may need money. As a part of the adult day services, George volunteers at a local food pantry and will go out to lunch in the afternoon and needs at least $10. Does the adult day services provider need to keep documentation?
Yeah.
That is correct. All right, now I'm going to ask Ashley from MedScore to come up and sort of share what they do from an adult day services perspective.
I feel bad touching your point. Okay. I'm sorry, guys. I'm super under the weather, so I hope you can hear me okay. So I'm from MedScore. Me and my husband opened MedScore 2 years ago. So we're a smaller ADA. We serve about 40 people every day, so this system works for us because we're a little bit smaller to medium. And I can't guarantee that what we do would work on a large scale, but this could at least get you guys started in the right direction. Some of the responsibilities that an ADA provider would have would be to make sure all deposits of the funds that we receive are put in their account within 5 days. We do ours immediately because we're small. We can get it right into our hand and put it into account the same day. A summary of their transactions will be made immediately upon request. I'll show you guys how we do that as well. Personal funds must be made available to the individual within 3 days of the request. Our stuff is all the same day, so typically it'll be for an outing or something like that, so ours is same day transactions. And then we have to be able to have a policy that outlines a system of monitoring and prohibiting any individual's funds from being commingled, which we keep everything separated specifically per individual, and we'll show you how we do that. So when we first became an ADA provider, we did not manage funds. We just hoped people would bring in money when they needed to and that everything would be good, but we found out pretty quickly that that's not going to happen. I know, that was naive. So the reason we decided to take over managing the funds was that we have multiple community outings per week, and we also have a lot of people who come in-house and do classes for our individuals, and they need funds to do that right away. So we decided if the funds are on site, we can make sure that they don't miss out on anything. We had a history, we've only been open 2 years, but very quickly we learned that the guardians and other providers might not send in money when we asked them to. We would send home letters, we would send out emails saying that they needed funds for this and that, And these are mostly people who don't really have much of a concept of funds, so they really need their provider to make sure that they have it, and it wasn't happening. And the look on their face when they came in and they were excited all week for an activity and nobody sent in funds for them was just, it wasn't something that we wanted to continue. We sell art at our program, so we do like woodworking and things like that. And we sell our art pieces and the funds go directly back to the individual. And we needed a place to put those funds, so all the parents, even though they have to report their income and stuff like that, you know, they are told how much they make and everything. We needed a place to put the funds because the parents were like, oh, please don't send it back. We'll just spend it on Skyline. Keep it at MedScore and let them do it for things that they want at their day program. So this was a way to do that. And then obviously we needed to make sure that we would have individuals walk in the door with $20 in their wallet, but their ISP says they can only have $5. So this kind of helped us eliminate them carrying more money than they have to, so we did it so we can stay in compliance with their My Plan. So there's a lot of benefits to helping them manage their funds. So it's immediately available upon request. So if we decide it's a nice day and we want to go get ice cream, I have the money there on site and I can let them use it whenever they need to. Convenience, obviously, so if it's something that's scheduled or something that just pops up, the money's always there. Like I said earlier, they're less likely to miss an outing due to lack of funds. And then we can better plan in the future for things. Sometimes we go on more expensive outings. Maybe we're going to go see a theater show or something like that. And maybe they need to be able to save up $20 or $40 because some people only have a few extra dollars after bills are paid to send in. So it helps us budget later on in the year for things that they want to do. So here's an example. Joe's guardian/payee can only afford to send in $30 each month for Joe to use on outings and activities. At the beginning of the month, Joe asks that he might say that he wants to use some of his funds for hot lunch, which is $10 a month. Our activities coordinator at MedScore then knows that Joe will have $20 left over for his outings and can better encourage him to participate in activities that actually fit in his budget. And then if Joe wants to go, like I said later in the year, if they want to go see something that costs more money, we can help budget that. Whereas if we had no idea what his funds were and we weren't hearing from providers, we'd have no idea in 6 months if he was going to have money to do that, but we can help him budget if the funds are on site. Oh, is this the next? Yeah. So how do we actually track the funds? Each participant has an individual pouch that's kept at MedScore. So each person, so we don't use a bank account, so we actually have all the funds locked up in a safe. It has limited access only if you are a trained supervisor, so they have to be trained on our money policy, our money managing policy. And then they also have to work with me and make sure that they understand the route of how the money goes through. There's only 2 keys to our safe, so you can't just go in and get them at any time, okay? So you actually have to be a trained supervisor to be able to go and get it. And then each time we have any money come out, and a receipt is written out to who it goes to, they have to sign off on that. And then we put it in our system, which I'm going to show you on the next slide. So this is kind of an example of what our sheet that we use. So Karen showed you guys earlier in the day what a written paper form looks like, but we like to do things electronically because I make a lot of, errors and things like that. This way I can go ahead and change it quickly or do whatever I need to do. So right here is where all the individuals' names would be. In our program, it would have, so the first line would be the individual's name, the date that we withdrew money. I put how much money is withdrawn, I put my initials, and then I would put what the activity was for. So everything has to say what we're using the money for. If they sent money in for the day, it would be their name. We would deposit however much it is, let's say it's $20, the staff's initials, and then it would just say that activity money was sent in, and then the receipt would be more detailed. So this is just a quick way that way when we reconcile, we can sort it by person, we can sort it by date. It's a very quick process versus if you're just using paper and you're trying to flip through 40 people, it's just not an easy way to do it. And then this is a snapshot. So all those transactions that I put in, that was the slide before, if I go to another tab on my spreadsheet, I can see how much each person has immediately. So if a guardian calls and says, hey, I want to know how much money's in Joe's account, I know in 10 seconds. Because all my transactions are logged the same day. I have all my receipts done the same day. So let's say person 9's guardian called. I can see how much was put in, how much was withdrawn, and I can tell you that he has $46.66 at any given time. And this helps our activity coordinator with planning activities. So let's say this person, let's say this person here has $5, and let's say he's had $5 for 6 months. Maybe we've been asking provider to send in money, maybe the guardian, maybe they just don't have the money. And that's okay. It's okay if you don't have the money. I know that if that person's been sitting at $5 for 6 months, I'm gonna encourage them to do all the free outings they can. I'm not gonna push them to do things and encourage them to do things that's gonna put them over their budget, because that's not what we're here for. We're here to help them make better decisions and budget their money better. Does anybody have any questions?
I got a question. Is Metzger named after the dashing Eric Metzger?
Ah, that's exactly it, yes. Yeah, we thought about you when we made our name. Our last name is Metz, so obviously, yeah.
I wanted to mention one last thing. I know historically we've gotten notified that some providers are concerned because when OPSAR goes out to review, for individuals that may be able to manage safely $2, OPSAR will go out and say, oh, like, how much does the person have on them? And when they have $10, the provider receives a citation because the individual has more money on them than they can safely handle. We've got clarification from DODD that should no longer be happening. People have a right to spend their money, and at the time that it's in their wallet, if you can document that they received $2 each day or whatever was the expectation and they chose not to spend it, that's okay, they can choose that. So they may ask some further questions or make some recommendations if somebody can only manage $2 and somebody has $40 in their wallet. So do you need to help set up a savings account, or what's the long-term plan? Just to make sure that a large amount of money doesn't go missing.
How's that connect with the IP though? You have to have, as a provider, if a day service provider asks us to send in money, okay, like in this scenario, we should do that. But shouldn't that correspond with what the IP allows us to do?
So lots of times what we see from ADA providers is that what they want is to make sure that people have money for outings. Is typically, I think people send in money on Monday, like $20. But what you're saying is, say somebody can't manage the $20 on the transportation from their home to ADA program. I would say this new My Plan, you'll have space to add that. Like, I'm safe to carry my money to my ADA program and give it to my program manager. So I would just be as detailed as you need to be so that it's clear what you're doing and why you're doing it, and that no one's at risk. And if somebody really probably is not safe carrying that much money, maybe they take Metro and don't understand it, there may have to be another way that the money gets to the ADA program. Any other questions? Oh, Jen, you want to come up and show?
I'm covering for Todd. He's under the weather today. So forgive me if I don't do as brilliant a job as Todd would do. He's a great presenter. One thing before we get into this, I did want to mention, I'm glad Amy brought this up, but Amy talked about if you are the payee or if you are doing funds management, money management service, either service under HPC or under money management, either one, or if you're the payee and not being paid to do it, we are having a real problem with people going over their Medicaid resource limit and losing their Medicaid. So it's extremely important that if you're involved in that process that you understand what the limits are and that the person does not go above it. And I will say that does not mean take the cash out and hide it somewhere, because we've been finding that too. That's not okay either. But with the stable accounts being available, there is every availability for people to have those funds and be able to use them for their needs and still stay under the resource limit. So we have a lot of expertise here at the county. Amy knows a lot about it. Antonio, who works in my area, is very well versed, as are all the members of his team.
We have a stable account session in.
We do. When is that?
May.
May, okay.
By Kristen.
And we can also, please tell us ahead of time, tell us early. What we're finding on a weekly basis is lots of people losing their Medicaid, which is not good. If they lose their Medicaid, there's no way to pay waiver services. So even if you're not involved in their money management, if you become aware of it, please let us know. Contact Antonio or one of our benefit reps and let us step in and assist you with trying to resolve the problem before they lose their Medicaid. So just a plug for that, and thank you, Amy, for bringing that up, because it's really important. So it's whatever system you're using, make sure you have some way of recognizing whether it's a software or whatever to tell you if they're getting close to that limit, and make sure that you deal with that as early as possible. Okay, and I'm going to go into the My Plan assessment, but since this is related, I'll give you this announcement. When Karen sends out the stuff from today, we have the flyers. Ryan, thank you, has them drafted for us. They'll go out.
last time we were here, I mentioned an opportunity for training coming up, and it's very timely with the presentation today about money. So we were fortunate to be the recipient of some training that we'll all be involved in. We have the dates confirmed, and again, the flyers will go out with the links to sign up. It's free for anyone who wants to participate. The first day is on April 4th. It's there's two opportunities. The April the 4th session is a pretty big session, pretty wide availability. It'll be here. It's a full day with lunch included. It's called Your Money, Your Goals, and it's really for staff. It's a train the trainer format. It's for your staff or yourselves, people who work with individuals, to learn this curriculum and then be better able to help people carry out some of the things we've talked about as far as helping people understand their money, how to budget, how to be more involved in that process. So that's the wide opportunity. The second day, we are going to probably wait and see what we get on the first one. If you're interested in the second one, you can email probably me and let me know, and then we'll send you the link because it's a smaller opportunity. It is for probably around 10 or 12 providers who really want to implement this in their agencies. And the second day is for managers or administrators to come in and brainstorm how you can use this in your organization. So I'll probably send out, probably have Ryan and Karen send out just the day one flyer first, and then email me if you're interested in day two so we can make sure we have, get as many of you in as possible. And they want to limit that to about 10 or 12. This is an outside trainer coming in. You'll be given the curriculum, all the materials, no cost to you, and we hope all of you that deal with money are interested in coming. So good opportunity. All right, so many of you have been involved in this, and we want to just kind of let you know where we are on our redesign of our assessment and where we're going from here. So this is Todd's PowerPoint, so forgive me if I don't follow along real well, but we're going to post the draft, as Karen mentioned, on the provider site so that you can take a look and send us feedback. All throughout March, we're getting feedback from our SSAs, from providers, from other stakeholders, and we'll be making some edits during the month of March. We've already gotten a lot of feedback. We have a few SSAs piloting this with a few families who've agreed, so you may see it out there in use. Just some background on why we did this. We've been pretty open in sharing that we've got some citations around our plans, particularly our assessment. When we went through accreditation last year, they weren't real happy. They felt our assessment was not very person-centered. And so it didn't do a lot to talk about strengths. So you'll see a purposeful change in that we are identifying in the assessment what does the person do to participate in these different activities, and then what do they need help from the provider with. Again, more and more citations, so we're hoping to avoid those. On the provider side, we've gotten feedback from you, and it's come out through many different ways, either through reviews or MUIs, different things, that there's some lack of, there's a lack of detail, which I think is interesting for Jamie and others who've been around. We've kind of gone full circle. The pendulum swings one way then the other. We used to have too much. We took it all out. Now it's not enough, so we're going the other way. So our hope is to land in a good place where we have enough information, but not too much. So that's a part of what's behind it. There were some really clear things, for example, that were missing that it's kind of, you lose the, what's the saying? You can't see the trees for the forest, or the forest for the trees, whatever it is. I think that kind of happened here. So there were some things missing, such as if I utilized a wheelchair for, to get myself around, that wasn't really reflected in the plan often. So some basic things that if you were a new DSP walking into a home, we know this, with the staffing issues, sometimes that happens, where we're getting trained really quickly. Some basic things that you need to know about people, we're kind of missing from our plan. So we're hoping to correct a lot of that. Level of supervision came up a lot, especially with MUIs. The language was too vague, and there was a lot of different interpretations about what different terms meant, so we've tried to work with everyone to clear some of that up. Our own feedback from our own staff, and it wasn't user-friendly enough. There was too many ways to have miscommunication occur, and not enough space to really provide details. We had a lot of check boxes and things like that, but not a lot of narrative space. But if you work with me very long, I tend not to like text boxes because they say, what do they say to people when you're filling things out? Well, somebody knows what I say all the time. Karen?
Filling with stupid stuff.
Yeah, please type stupid things in me. So I don't like text boxes because, unfortunately, sometimes we have things that go in there and we're like, we shouldn't have said that. But we're going to try to really clean that up and provide that opportunity because we're lacking the detail on things people need to know. So against my wishes, but we do need to do it. All right, some other stakeholders, just so you know, other people have been involved. Gold Standard's been involved, MUI, we said, quality team from reviews, behavior support, and of course the department. One of the things that Todd, and he does a much better job than I do at this. I'm much like Karen, I do better with the black and white, and much like Eric, Todd is the feely person who tells the story. But really our goal with our assessment tool is to tell the story. So to really help you paint the picture of the person so that someone that's going to be supporting them can really understand them and know what they need to know about that person to provide good services. So when you see our assessment, from the beginning to end, we're really trying to tell that story about that person. What can that person do and help do as part of their life? What do they need help with? What do you need to know about them? Also, of course, we want to comply with rule as always. One of the other things you'll notice right away is that if you haven't seen it yet, the landscape version, if you recognize before, our assessment went portrait, and then our plan out of Gatekeeper, we can't control that, it prints landscape. So that was problematic for you as you were trying to keep those in your home. You're always flipping them around. Nobody likes that, including us. So I don't know why we didn't fix that before, but Todd fixed that. So you'll just notice that right away. Let's see here. Okay. Another thing on the cover page you'll notice of the assessment that changed, you can easily, is this thing have a thing? Okay, here we go. This is when we're doing it, so this means this is when we did it for the start of that span, and then if we make a change to the assessment, you're going to see it here. So you'll know when you look at it right away, oh, we've made a change, here's when we made it, and here's what we changed. So rather than trying to go through and find what changed, we wanted to highlight again, and we do have the cover letter that says that, but this is one way for it to be right there for you to easily see, your staff to easily see what's changed. Again, more details about the big picture. So some of these were things we had there, some are newer. So again, some basic things that we didn't always capture necessarily. If you didn't know the person, you would need to know. For example, how do I communicate with others? Unique things about me. Things that have occurred in the past year or things that are expected to change. So important things for you to know about the person. We also have a lot more detail in the medical care section as in terms of what assistance the person needs, how does the person participate. So again, more details on their strengths and abilities in here. Another area where we knew that we didn't always do a great job of detailing things and it caused a problem both with citations, MUIs, and just generally not having the information you need is issues with diet, equipment, and medical care. So we have really clear areas where we can put that in. You know, if I have a soft diet or whatever the kind of diet I have, we need to detail that here. So these are good changes. Another thing you'll see, and we had this in here before, there's more room now to talk about it. This relates to MUI as well, diagnosis that is expected to lead to hospitalizations where we can detail it, so then prevents you from having to file a bunch of MUIs if it's related to that for hospitalizations. Medication administration, I'm trying to keep it brief because I know we have a lot of things on our agenda today, but one of the areas there's a lot of change in is how we're listing and talking about medication administration. DODD recently changed their assessment tools. There's now 7 assessments that could possibly be in play for a person depending on their needs. The main one we're still going to see is the oral and topical, which is what we've always had embedded in our assessment. What you'll see now is a summary of, this is kind of a summary page of what you're going to see following. So it'll say, okay, these apply to this person. So, oral and topical meds, there's an assessment about that. Do they have inhaled medications, oxygen, health-related activities, glucometer, different things that might apply to that person. There's also a couple of notations about ones that you or your contracted nurse would be doing, or your staff nurse, because there are 2 that are required to be done by a nurse. So the insulin, G-tube, J-tube, those are all things that would have to be done by a nurse. That's not a change, but in the past we didn't have a good way of capturing that in our assessment, and we've actually received some citations on that. So what you'll see in here in the next, I don't know if you got the whole thing in here. If it's oral and topical, the SSA is still going to complete that in the assessment, and they're going to probably be getting that information, the answers from you, the provider, or others in the person's life. But what we didn't have in the past was a way to capture the results of the assessment if it was an assessment done by someone other than us. So if it's a G-tube, J-tube, or insulin and the nurse is doing it, we didn't really capture the results of that assessment in our assessment. So there's a place for that now. He did note, we have to have this approved by DODD because we're not using their forms and we're in the process of getting that approval. We don't have all of it in here. So what we don't have shown here, after this page, it would show you the actual assessment for oral and topical, or if it's one of the other ones, it would show what the results are. So if, for example, if it's G-tube or J-tube, is the person able to self-administer or are they not? What is the outcome of that assessment based on the one done by the provider? A lot of changes here, a lot more detail, a lot more defining. If you look at the top, I really like how they did this, and this came with a lot of input from MUI and many of you. Level of supervision, defining the terms, because those terms meant different things to different people, and so it caused a lot of confusion. And so we tried to have definitions so it's very clear what we mean when we say constant visual. What does that mean? There's now, unfortunately, it's 3 pages, but in order to get the level of detail you need, sometimes it gets longer, and you'll notice our assessment is much longer. So as Karen mentioned earlier, we're going to be covering the different settings. So it's really clear what's the level of supervision required at home, community, day program. Jenny or Karen, anything else about level of supervision?
Just remember, anything outside the person's front door is considered community unless otherwise specified. And I think that might be included in there, but just.
I think it does say that in here. Another thing I think that I don't recall us having this level of detail before about is overnight staffing, being really clear what's going on overnight. So I don't have staffing overnight, or I have this following kind of staffing, and we pick. We have awake staff, on-site on-call staff, to say nursing, daily rate, or remote support. So that's not something we included that level of detail, really important detail in the new version.
A question.
Sure.
On your medical,
Uh-huh.
I didn't see anywhere you have a list of like all the medications.
That is still there. The question was, couldn't hear it, was she didn't see where we had a list of medications. These aren't all the screens, these are just excerpts, different parts, so that is still in there. That is a question we asked, all the medications, and those are still in our medical history report, I believe. So those go in Gatekeeper in our medical history report, not in the assessment, but they do print with the assessment.
Okay.
Great question. Okay, again, this is just more on the level of supervision. Also, just so you know, this assessment is meant to be used electronically. So if you're testing it, I don't recommend printing it. I recommend looking at it on the screen. There's lots of prompts that will come up for the SSA as they complete this. So you're going to see these as you're going through. So these little boxes are going to pop up, kind of all the things people have to keep in mind, because people can't remember everything. These are trying to prompt them, hey, think about this, or remember this, or this means this. So you'll see a lot of instruction boxes pop up as you go through. We have a more detailed section on remote supports. It only gets filled out if the person receives remote supports. In an ideal world, it wouldn't even print if you didn't get remote supports, but we're not there yet. It's one of our goals. Karen talked about this. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but this is the really a lot more detailed, and again, to Jamie's point, a place to indicate, if the provider's going to be sending in money to the day program, you're able to more accurately reflect that here. Again, Todd would do a much better job explaining this than me, but in the end, you're going to see sort of this summary that really details out all the different areas in a person's life, and this goes over 7 pages. It is a lot, but I think it'd be very helpful to talk about, in this left column, we really talk about what does the person do? What is their role in these different areas in their life? What are they able to do? What are their strengths? And then, over here, we talk more about, we say what service has been authorized, who's authorized, and then what type of support, the detail of what are the services and supports being provided by that provider in those areas. Again, this is an example of how this might look. Again, the way that he looks at it is sort of, this is the end of the story. So the right column really finishes that story. What are the details of what that provider is going to be doing for the person? Okay, what's next? We kind of talked about this already. We're gathering feedback right now. We encourage you, once it's posted, to go take a look if you haven't already. Send any feedback or questions you might have to Todd. His email's here. Karen, will you be posting this PowerPoint as well? So this will go out as well. So you'll have his email address. Sorry.
It's posted already.
Karen, look at her. She's already posted.
Hey, Jan.
Ryan, sorry.
Jen.
Yes.
What kind of feedback buy-in from SSAs?
They've had a lot of feedback. They've had a lot of opportunity to give feedback. They're looking at it right now, so they have all of March. I think
It's a lot more work for them.
it is more work, but I think people are understanding that more work on the front end can prevent problems down the road, as far as MUIs or confusion between SSA, provider, other team members about what was supposed to happen and who was supposed to do it. So it is more work, but I think in the end it will be worth it. So I think they're kind of digesting it right now. It's been, was shown to them last month at the LSAF, and they're having opportunity to use it right now, play with it, give feedback. in an ideal world, this would be, I've mentioned this before, we really want to have like a TurboTax My Plan, and we were well on our way to trying to get a new vendor and work with this, and then we got the announcement that the director is really focused on one of his initiatives is going to be a statewide ISP. So we don't want to invest a bunch of money and more time in creating a system that we could be forced out of. So we've volunteered, have and asked to be able to lead that because we've done a lot of work already. So in an ideal world, this is 26 pages, this assessment, the full thing, but a lot of it may not be applicable to a person, but it's there anyway. So unfortunately, we don't have a system that things disappear when they don't apply.
I would just keep track of, back to the statewide ISP, and he's pretty serious about that.
Yes.
And we're already starting talks on that too. Let's keep track of the things we don't like about it too, you know?
About our current,
Yeah, provider feedback, SSA feedback, because
Yes.
I think we really hammer it down. I mean, we have to create it so you guys are in compliance with the rule, right?
Right.
And us too.
right?
Well, if the rule can change, what do we want to change about that?
Yeah.
You
It's
know
our
what makes
opportunity.
sense is after we start using it more widely to have some formal way to collect feedback on it, if it's a survey link on our site or something like that, and so we
That's a great
can continue to.
Or maybe
It
some
just worked
focus
really
sessions
well.
or something after we
Pardon me?
start, maybe some focus sessions
we do
after we
both.
use it?
Definitely.
Because if we're gonna lead that, which we should, that discussion, we should give them the good and the bad.
Yeah, that's a good
Yeah,
idea.
no, you're right, you're absolutely right. Any other questions about the new assessment tool? Yeah.
Under, level of supervision,
Uh-huh.
if a person has a long time, and it's always been specified, like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, the
Mhm.
person would be alone for up to 3 hours or whatever. And they may choose to not take it on those, not want their alone time on the step outside of those days. Is it going to be something specific to?
There are options, Jenny, chime in if you want, but I know that there are 2 ways you can fill it out. You can say if the person has chosen to schedule it, and you can also say that they don't want to schedule it and they're going to use it when they want to. So I know we got that feedback from you and some other folks about that not being able to be made real clear. So there's a lot more opportunity for the person to control when they want that, and for us to reflect that that's okay. Anything else about that, Jenny?
I just wanted to, and Jen kind of hit on it a little bit earlier, but remember, a lot of you guys have worked with individuals for 10, 12, 15, 20 years, and we forget about the obvious stuff, right? The person uses a wheelchair, so it may not be in the plan somewhere, but for new people coming in, they may not know that. Or somebody doesn't have any teeth, they've never had teeth, as long as you can remember. But guess what, we get an MUI because they choked on something, and it's nowhere in the plan that they don't have teeth. So again, just those obvious things, make sure
Yeah.
those kinds of things are in there. I think that'll help everybody. And
Yeah.
I couldn't see, on the assessment part as far as community, is work captured in that community
Yes.
piece as well?
Yes, there's a
And
section
so we
specific for that.
specific.
Mm-hmm, yep. If you couldn't hear, the question was, is work captured, work or day program? Yes, there's an area for that to be captured, what the expectations are for that. So send your feedback to Todd, please take the time to look at it, and I hope that it's more helpful for you, and hope we've cleaned up a lot of the troublesome areas that you've reported to us, so. Okay, I know we're really short on time, so let me just give you a couple quick updates, and then I'll be done. Just an update on the monthly rate calculator. We talked about in here about that transition. We have begun. We have one site in the monthly rate calculator. And a reminder to anyone who maybe this is new to them, the monthly rate calculator applies to settings where individuals share HPC services. So settings that would have been under the old DRA or that are under the DRA right now, we have to transition them to the monthly rate calculator by the end of 2019. So we started with OVRS, we transitioned one site, and they just did their first round of billing, so far, smooth sailing. Nancy and Jamie and Chris and I, Chris is their financial person, are trying to figure out a schedule to move some more of their sites over. We want to get our procedures updated to share with you, and then we're going to be sharing information, probably another session, I'm thinking, bring people in, for those who this applies to talk about it. And then we're going to be getting a calendar out to you. Probably, I don't think we'll transition any sites other than OVs until April, you thinking?
At the earliest.
At the earliest, okay. So we have all of 19, we'll get that out to you. And again, we talked about this last time, but when we do come up with a calendar, if that doesn't work for you, if there's something big going on in the month we gave you, and that doesn't work, just let us know and we'll work with you. It's not set in stone by any means. Some more to come on that, but so far so good, really no huge problems.
And then talk about our state group.
Oh, yes, there's a statewide work group, stakeholders group related to monthly rate calculator. I'm on it, Jamie and Chris are on it, and some other folks. Mark, you're on that one too, right? I'm trying to think who I heard talking on the call. Other counties, other county boards, a couple other county boards, a lot of providers, and some folks from the State Department. And that's our opportunity to give them feedback on what's working, what's not working.
In real time.
In real time. And I do think they've been so far pretty responsive. They're working on right now a guidance memo that we provided some feedback on. I did, I know Jamie is, that we want to make sure is pretty good before they send it out to everyone. So we'll keep you updated on the work of that group, but it's a great way for us to have a voice at the table. So.
Yeah, just so you know, I mean, usually the department made a rule, and then we all had to comply. Both county boards and providers we just had to comply. In this way, there's a rule in place with the monthly rate calculator, but the department is open to adjusting it, the rule, if need be, and guidance on it in real time, so that we can, there's gonna be problem areas. And if we can have a unified approach to it, they're open to changing it, which is great.
Yeah, the only thing that won't change, and that was made pretty clear on our initial conversation, is it's not going away.
It's happening.
Because there were some people trying to make that, oh, you're open, let's talk about not doing
Yeah,
this.
not that open.
It's not that open, so that's not
But
gonna
that's
change.
different. That's a new approach
Yeah.
that we've never had before.
And I think they've been responsive in terms of actually fixing things already, which that's,
Absolutely.
that's not a typical way we do things.
Right.
So it's a refreshing
Take us
change.
years.
The other thing I wanted to update you on, just to let you know our focus areas for 2019, because you'll be hearing from probably a lot of my staff. Things that we're really focusing on, we've mentioned before, technology is going to continue to be a focus. We have the new assistive technology service that went into effect in January. We have a number of initiatives around that, so you may be hearing from us, asking if you want to participate, or have you looked at this, have you thought about that? Also with remote supports, we're going to continue our work on that. At the end of 2018, we led the state in the number of remote support authorizations, and we plan to continue that good work. So you may be hearing from us about those things. One point of clarification, if you get the DODD monthly or weekly update, hopefully you saw on Monday, they're providing some clarification. There was an error made in the rule that went into effect in January for assistive technology, in that the annual budget is listed for level 1 or for any waiver as $5,000 per span year, and that's accurate. However, if you're on the level 1, that is a sub budget of the $7,500 every 3 years budget, and that was omitted from the rule. So they're going to be doing a rule change, but we are going to be implementing it as that is in effect, because that's the system. It's not going to allow you to go outside of that. So we have to keep that in mind when we're making authorizations, that yes, it's $5,000 per span, but if you're on level 1, that $5,000 has to fit within the $7,500 every 3 years budget with the other items that fall there. So far, we have nobody that's falling outside of that, so it's not a problem so far, and our staff are aware. So look for a rule change on that. I think that's it. Focusing on our assessment plan are going to be our other big initiatives, and we'll be looking for you to assist us with that, and that's kind of where we are.
Great, thanks, Jen.
Sorry. Thanks.
I will not feel anything.
We heard.
So just quickly, we'll take no more than a couple minutes to do this. Sean Bostic is our new family engagement coordinator. This is a position we developed for families exclusively, or at least in terms of the primary feeling. One of the things when I walked into advocacy, and I think this is true statewide, we had worked so hard, and this is just context before I introduce Sean formally, is, we did such a good job in terms of talking about person-centeredness. I think what we did advocacy-wise, it's that pendulum again, we went so far that we left families out. A lot of times we began to, we're all aware that there are times where there are conflicts between families and the people we serve, but overwhelmingly, right, where families are involved, they need to be included in the person's life. And I think that we kind of created unintentionally a wedge. And so it's been our purpose to really engage families, thus family engagement, and make sure that they're absolutely clear that they're primary in terms of our support. And I'll talk about that just a little bit because I think that I want to say this too, is our purpose is to get to families. I look at it like house calls, right? When we say person-centered, too many times we've asked families to be what I call center-centric. In other words, come to the center, come to our office, come to build. Where are families at? It's so difficult for families, to get across town. They've got 1,000 things like everybody. And on top of it, if their child has a disability and all the things that go into that, and helping people get to doctors and that. So our purpose has been, in the 2 years I've been doing this, is to get to families. We're going to go to your house, wherever you are. If you're worried about cleaning that day, my wife does, nobody's allowed in the house until we've swept everything, well, then we can meet next door. We can meet at McDonald's close to you. But the point is, we really are demonstrating that we're here for you. The other really important part of this, and I cannot emphasize this enough, when you think about all of us as providers and county boards, right, we offer resources that are part of their life. They're not their whole life. So my department is really focused on getting to your whole life. So when we sit down and talk with a family, they see my card and they think I only want to talk about services. Services are limited, right? Nobody has enough services to cover and fulfill somebody's life. So our point, every time we talk with a family, every time, I want to hear your whole story. Your whole story. And the reason that's important is because from that, and the same with the person that we're serving, from that story, I can start to tease out and hear what it is that you need. Many times that need has nothing to do with provider services, has nothing to do with county board services. It has to do with the loneliness that you're experiencing, the isolation you're experiencing, resources that are right next door to you that you don't even know. You can go to CRC, Centenary Recognition. For $25, you can get a pass to the YMCA, which will fulfill a lot of things that the provider can't provide in and of itself, right? Your church next door, did you know that we just talked with your church? We didn't know you went to that church, and they offer all these resources to you. Did you know that, right? So the point being is we tell families, we don't want to just hear your DD story. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? We want to hear your whole story. Well, you don't have time, honey. This one lady told me, she goes, you don't have time, honey, to hear my whole story. And I said, yeah, I do. We have to make that time. And when we do, it helps us help you, the provider. It helps us help the individual, it helps the family. So we decided in order to do that, we got to make a commitment. So out of 119 people that applied for the position, thought it was important enough to do that, 16 interviews, 8 from inside, 8 from outside. We chose Sean. I'm just going to have Sean give a short word about, what his purpose is, how he sees that. And we have ordered him a giant belt buckle. I mean, we really want to go big. So, and it says, God help me, I've got the worst boss, kind of thing. Okay, go ahead. That's court.
Hello, I'm Sean, by the way, again. Thank you, Eric, for the introduction. And yes, my role as the Family Engagement Coordinator is pretty much to bridge the gap between our families and DDS and the providers. So pretty much as Eric likely says, I am like your communication information navigator. So whatever information our families need, my goal is to put that together for them versus them going out their way to find out. That's my role. I do that for them. I literally work for our family. So when this is over with, I will be passing out some of my cards. So you guys will get in touch with me, and whatever I can do to be an assistant for you and also for our families, please let me know. So.
And one of the things that Sean and I find all the time is clearly families are engaged with you, the provider, but they get lost. Does that make sense? They get lost sometimes, and sometimes it's not a system issue. And so they're just they feel like they're bumbling around talking to 7, 8, 9 people. I talked to 3 parents that all said the same thing. I make 4 or 5 calls a day, they said. 4 or 5 calls a day, and I know I'm going to get a no or I don't know whenever all those 5 calls, which is overwhelming, right? So our purpose is if you're finding families who are just kind of lost, for whatever reason, it doesn't matter what's a DD issue or otherwise, please use us to help. And what we're saying we're going to do is we'll put that package together. There's nobody in this room that can answer every question about the information. So what we're saying to families, give us a day. You're not going to wait 5 weeks. Give us a day to package that information. If you ask the questions you know to ask, we'll tell you some other questions you may not know to ask. We will put that together, we'll get that to you, and we'll link you to the right people, okay? So that's the whole purpose, all right? You got a big job.
Welcome.
Okay, Jenny, you're up. We have 3 main
to share with everyone, new rule, right? I don't think anybody's experienced a ton of huge hiccups. If you have, let me know. We've done 2 trainings. Remember, all staff have to be trained on new rule changes by March 31st. That's coming up sooner than we think. We did 2 trainings. I did 2 trainings in February. I see some people here that attended those. I'll be doing 2 more in March. You can register. It's hamiltondds.org/MUI training. I never know if it's forward or back. That way. MUI training. And March 8th will be here from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then we have one March 20th at the support center from 1 to 3. There is 2 hours CEUs for IA superintendent, and if you have any of those certifications. Otherwise, I'll make sure you get a certificate for attending. The other thing just related to new rule is that there was some confusion regarding board members being trained by March 31st. And I think that we were originally under the impression that it needed to be county board members. It's all board members. So make sure that that's done. That clarification is under the MUI rule FAQs. It's the very last page, and it specifically said our provider board members required to be trained on this rule, and it says yes. So just make sure that's done. And
Hey,
then,
Jenny, question on documentation of that.
yeah,
What are you going to accept?
you know what? It's not me. So I don't know.
As long
I
as
would
you-
just do a brief, like, sign-in sheet that people were here, received information. That's what we use.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So
And date,
right,
Okay,
right.
just like a paragraph of the content.
okay.
Great. Okay, and then lastly, my favorite time of year, the annual MUI analysis stakeholder meeting will be March 21st. Support center at 1:30. No registration required. Everyone is welcome to come and learn. We're going to compare the last 5 or 6 years under old rule now. So this will be the last time that we do that.
When was that again?
It is March 21st, 1:30 at the support center. So hopefully I'll see some of you there.
March 21st.
Yeah. 1:30, yep. Sure, and it's also, if you guys get the provider newsletter, it's in there as well, but this Friday, March 8th, here, 10 a.m. to 12. And then the other one is March 20th at the support center from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And it's, if you want to register, hamiltondds.org/MUI training. I'm not going to turn you away if you don't register. It's just helpful to know how many people we're expecting. So, all right, great.
Thanks, Jenny. Kara is pulling up the EBB here.
Hi, I'm gonna make this as brief as I can. I'm just gonna talk a little bit about EBB because we're in 2019, and so that means August will be upon us very shortly, which means many of you will be greatly impacted by this. And we as a county are pretty concerned because we think there probably could be some challenges and frustrations along the way. So let me get in. So EBB is a part of the 21st Century Cures Act. So as you feel your frustrations, and as individuals and families also feel their frustrations with this, please keep in mind that this is not a HCDDS requirement, it's not a DODD requirement, it's not an Ohio requirement, it's a federal requirement. And it came apart in the 2016, the 21st Century Cures Act. And it requires that anyone receiving personal care must have specific electronic documentation of those visits. All right, and the reason that Ohio is pushing this is because if they do not implement EBB, then they will start losing some federal match money. So it's very important that we roll out. The deadline for our area to implement is from January 1st, 2020. So we are going to be slightly ahead of that deadline. SAM data is actually Ohio's solution to the Medicaid requirement. There's a typo there. So SAM data is the system that is going to be used by Ohio to capture information. It's free to providers, it's free to individuals. It's these little electronic devices that are like described to me as to be like iPhones, but that are virtually indestructible. So DSPs will use the device to clock in and out for each service that they provide, HPC, each shift staff. Providers are able to get use their own system, but it has to be approved by Medicaid. Otherwise, it's expected that this system will be used. So EVV is, the requirements is that it has to capture the start and stop times of visit, what services are provided, and the person providing that direct service. So the intent is that eventually this will link up to billing and the claims that you submit. So pretty huge impact. I'm going to skip over this because we're short on time. Phase 1 has already been implemented, and that was with State Plan Home Health Services and Ohio Home Care Waiver Services. We are part of Phase 2 that goes live August 5th. And the services under that are IO waiver nursing, HPC minute units for DODD waivers, the Department of Aging, and managed care organizations. The one thing that we want to keep in mind is that although people on the monthly rate calculator that share services, this does not apply to, anytime a person's housemate moves out and then it's no longer a shared setting, the person would be switching over to needing EVV in that documentation. So we're still figuring out sort of our parameters of when the site will switch from a shared setting to individual setting, because there is some flexibility around there. And once we sort of figure out the parameters on our end, we're sort of thinking probably 45, 60 days. Staff would need to be trained and switched to the EVV device. What is tricky is that DSPs have to have specific training, individual training. So you as a provider, your training in the system does not count for individuals. In order for them to have access to the system and to have login information, they have to have their own emails, their own provider code numbers, and their own passcode to log on to the device. What is additionally tricky, I'll cover that in a second. Never mind, sorry.
Karen, one thing. One thing we learned, didn't you tell it was 3 days, right? They have 3 days.
2 days.
2 days, sorry, 2 days. So once a site, we're particularly concerned about two-person settings. So if we have a two-person setting and one person goes to jail, and we have to end that person in the site, it's now a single setting and it is EVD applicable. You have 2 days to request the device and start using it. And at some point, we know the deadline when it's going to start affecting billing. When she says link to billing, it means if you don't log an EVD claim at the same time you're filing a claim, you won't be paid. I'll be very clear about that. We have a deadline when that's going to occur, because it's not going to be very long.
They said late summer, but it's going into effect August.
So my thinking is you should just plan for that being the case very early on, because that's their intention and that's part of what they have to do to be in compliance. So EVD is something we've tried to avoid, but it's coming. We can't stop it. And so everyone has got to understand this. I don't want it to start impacting people's billing. And we're really worried about these two-person sites especially. So you can go along thinking you're only provide services in shared settings, EVD doesn't apply to you, and bam, all of a sudden it does. You have 2 days to get a device ordered, get your staff trained, and start clearing EVD, or you're not going to be able to get paid. Nobody wants that to happen to you. So if you feel like a reverse record, keep repeating this, that's why. You're going to keep hearing this the next few meetings.
Is anybody part of the phase 1 rollout?
So I have everybody, even the DD, everybody's on EVV.
Right. And I believe the training is 6 hours. So
Yes,
it's not a quick training.
It's not a quick training, but what we did, it's not a quick training, it's a 6-hour training, but what we did was, after we did the training, all our employees, we have to, whether you're DD or whether you're waiver, everybody, across the board, everybody's using EVV now.
So you had everybody do it? just-
Everybody. We don't care whether it's whether you're Medicaid, whether you're DD, whether you're passport, everybody's doing EVV now.
You're training all your staff on EVD so they're prepared if it applies.
We're already using it, everybody.
Any other advice you have from the beginning?
It's challenging sometimes because even the clients will say, don't do that. Because they say it's a way of getting their information, so they are scared.
They're scared about sharing.
Yes, so the main problem is the clients, not even the staff. And then the staff has their own challenges as well, because they will tell you, because you will see a lot of discrepancies, a lot of discrepancies when it starts. And then with the staff, we made them, now they have to use their phone, you know, and then, because some of the, like DD doesn't have a device.
Right.
Now, our DD device, clients don't have devices, so we made them, they use the phone, we already registered them, so when they come to the patient home, you must be in the patient home. So the geographical site must be from the patient home. So you see sometimes people will be outside the home, it will not, you know, it will not go. So you keep having DPS calling you, telling you, oh, well, I was there. We say, no, you're not there. Go inside the house.
File an exception, so for example, with ours, we want to encourage to provide services in the community. If you start your shift, say, out in the community, isn't there a way there's an exception to the system? Is there
Yes,
a way
that's
you
I'm coming to that. The caveat is the exceptions, because the caregivers are using that so much, the exceptions. So because they will tell you, oh, well, I was there, you know, I was here, and then they will call the patient and say, well, didn't I show up? Then the patient will say, yeah, they were there the entire time. So now you don't have any choice but to go do the exception. So that's the only problem that we're having. If they can find a way to end some of the, you know, kind of the shorten the exceptions, so that in that way the caregivers will not tell us that they were there when they were not there. Yes. But it's interesting though. It's like a lot of people will quit. You will lose a lot of your employees. But the thing is that they will go to this person will tell them, well, I have to do it. So, yes.
So if everybody's consistent.
Everybody's, because right now, some people are not doing it. We are doing it, so we are losing a lot of our employees because they'll be like, well, I have to go to this other agency, DD, they are not doing it. So they will leave you and go to an agency that is not doing it.
Wait till August.
So, but we can't wait. We really cannot wait for everybody to be using it so nobody can go move around. And again, we can track, you know, those care providers that are not really providing care. So that's the good part.
Some frauds.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing, that's really helpful, yeah.
May I add to that story too? I am a Medicaid provider, I have been trained with EDD. And it is a lot to deal with.
Yes.
And it's so difficult, like she said, going to the home. One minute they say you have to order your EDD device. You order it, you get it there in your home. Then they take you through the training with that. Okay, you got that down with the password and your email. Log in. Okay, you do that. You go in the client's home, thinking you're using your EDD. But they said, well, somebody said, no, you can't have that. We need to send it back. And I said, well,
Yes.
you told me we supposed to clock in with this device, and then it said download it on your phone. But if you don't have the capability or the space in your personal phone, which eats up the memory in your phone, you having trouble.
Exactly.
Things you wouldn't have thought about in front of it.
Right, it's a mess.
The
It
device
is
is
a
supposed to
mess.
go to the individuals now, right, not the providers, correct?
Let me finish.
But it's provided too.
You're supposed to have a device in your home.
There's two.
It's supposed to be in the home, like a clock in, caller ID, like ID.
They call it ID.
Plug in, yeah. But then if that don't work, then you in trouble. And then they said, you know, you have to use a personal information to clock in as far as a social security number or an ID number to clock in and clock out. Well, then you have a law, here we go. They're very scared about that. Then you're going through so many different agencies to see if they have the right insurance for you to get paid. It is a disaster.
It is. And then SunData will not respond.
Medicaid provider now, almost a year. I haven't had one client.
SunData.
I go through a lot, it's like you still hire me over and over and over again. And it's frustrating.
It is frustrating.
And I'm like, why I have to go through all these other hoops when I'm already a provider for Medicaid?
And then SunData is another problem too, because they are not, every day they're having updates. So until they kind of get it right, because they've not gotten the whole thing right. It's just, it's, you know, the system, every day you're having updates, and then you're calling them, nobody's responding. So it's really a mess.
Well, we appreciate having the forerunners and giving us feedback as you go. We might ask you again at the next session if their advice you might have for people as we implement it.
Okay.
It's super
It's
helpful.
not like they have to go through another application to get clients.
This was part of our worry.
Yeah, it's a mess.
The recommendation I have is if we could add an IL to the end of that acronym, so it says evil.
It is. But the good thing, we're getting it, though. Seriously, I like it. I'm getting to like it. It took us, because we started last year. And then by January this year, January 1st, we said, everybody, we don't care whatever you're doing, you have to do it. So it was a whole lot of mess in January.
But it's not affecting your billing yet.
No, no.
Wait till it affects your billing.
No, not right now, because we started on time. So it's not. We are not going to get that.
The report from phase one was if they would have implemented penalizing providers based on claims and EVV data, not matching, if they would have done that as directed, 60% of the providers would have not been paid.
But the thing about payment, though, is you will delay your payment. You will not get your money early. Because with the EVV now, you have to go loops of verification for you to get your money. Say you get your money every Monday, it's not going to be that way anymore. Because by the time they finish all the verification from Department of Medicaid, they will move it again. They will get report from EVV, and then they will come and verify the times, and then they will come and tell you that you have this many claims unverified, still waiting for payment. So it takes longer now for providers to get paid. Yes. So keep your money safe.
All right,
Don't spend your money.
I'm gonna finish a few more things, and then we'll sort of talk about next steps and how we can make sure that we're prepared as we go forward. So things that we're doing now is we're sort of learning more about EVV. We're talking about it providers. Providers, you should make sure your MITS information is correct, because that's how you're gonna get all your information about EVV. And I would start having those initial conversations with DSPs about EVV. This is going to be impacting you. You cannot, switching agencies isn't going to help you in the long run. It's inevitable. So in April, providers and DSPs we should get more information about the state training that they have. And then May through July, hopefully training happens, you'll have your policies in place, and I would begin using that device as soon as possible, as you're doing, so that you can start figuring out the glitches so that it's less of an emergency in August. You've already sort of gone through some things. Changes for phase 2 is that for phase 1, individuals or family members have to verify a visit. That's not the same for phase 2. There will be no verification. And then we are being told at this point, late summer is when you'll start seeing claims impacted by, to match the EVV. All right. Again, MITS is being used for communication purposes. We've had a work group on our end that includes SSAs. CORE is involved with us. Mindy Ponder sort of helped give us some ideas of what providers, from their perspective, things they're concerned about. So every DSP will need a unique email address, and to maintain that, for DSPs that work for multiple agencies, they'll have to remember multiple logins and information. To be able to log into and document time, DSPs have to be trained in the EVV system. Again, Jim mentioned this, but prior to if you can only provide services for 2 days, and then an EVV device must be requested. So prior to that, otherwise you will not be able to bill claims. Again, the device has to be returned within 48 hours. And there's also some concerns of the increased administrative work. So dealing with all these errors, claims, and exceptions, that takes a lot of time. So figuring out a system and manpower to do that when systems are already stretched very, very thin. Just
things to expect from the ISP. The team will be aware of EVV and when it's being used in settings, but it doesn't have to be listed in the ISP. I want to give you some information countywide of why we are concerned. So we have almost 1,500 people that we believe as of this week will be impacted by EVV. So what we are concerned of is that with small agency providers that may be missing information about EVV, when they start not being able to bill and receive payment, or independent providers, we are concerned that we will have a huge number of people that will be like without providers and at risk. And we think that's probably a pretty real possibility. This is a breakdown. Just over 1,000 have IO waivers and 400 level 1s. And then this is, we believe that 474 providers will be impacted by EVV. So a huge number of providers to get information out to. So 67% of those, or 317, are independent providers, and just over 150 are agency providers. So things that we are going to do next. Obviously, present here, we'll continue to share information in the provider newsletter. We are also giving information to SSAs at the upcoming SSA All Staff, which is next week. We are going, as we know that the 474 providers that are impacted by EVV, we're going to send them letters just saying, hey, this is what's happening. Make sure you check your email. Make sure MITS is updated. This is going to impact your billing, basically. We are also sending a similar letter to SSAs so that they can have that one-on-one conversation with providers and individuals. What we know from phase 1 is individuals were really confused that staff started using a device, had a device mailed to their house, and they were like, what in the world is this? So having that conversation with individuals, providers, to sort of help navigate as well and make sure the information is received and shared. The other thing that we are doing is we are going to offer a few targeted trainings. The presentation will be similar to this, maybe with a little bit more detail. We're going to offer it to providers just so that they know sort of the impact and the implications as well. And those will be offered later this month and next month. Things to do now for you guys, make sure MITS is updated. Review correspondence from Ohio Medicaid. Ohio Medicaid has a lot of information on their website about facts, videos, trainings. When trainings get offered to be trained on the EVV device in April, make sure you sign up for that as soon as possible. And there's some more information. All right, I wanted to take 2 more minutes to cover another important change. About 1.5 years, 2 years ago, we went live with a new provider search tool, and the goal was to help individuals and families be able to find providers more easily. And one thing that we heard constantly from individuals and family members and SSAs was that they would try to reach out to providers and they would not get a response, or the provider would be like, I don't know, I'm not really interested in providing services anymore, or even worse, that the email or phone number just didn't work. So we made a commitment to sort of make sure that that information was updated. Although if providers are certified, we can't remove them from the tool. We've now implemented that we've been able to verify a provider's data within the past 12 months. So what is happening is every year you should be getting an email from one of our administrative staff just saying, hey, please update your profile as an agency so that we can make sure we have the most up-to-date information on our provider search tool that individuals access. Following that, a few months later, you should get a call from one of our administrative staff as well, just saying, hey, I just wanted to call to make sure that this number is active and all this information is correct. Once that's been done, this will check as being verified, so that if an individual is looking for a provider and 100 providers show up, they can see quickly which one have had more contact with us and that we've been able to confirm their information. I'm assuming you guys are getting those calls?
Yeah.
Yes. Good. It just happens once a year. The other thing that you'll find on our new provider search is that individuals can now search by experiences, which wasn't available here previously. And the thing that I want to highlight back on this slide is that you can choose how you want to search by information. So you can choose the columns that are available. And that is all I have.
I just want to add that we're also asking survey questions every year, so it's really important we gather all that information. I just looked at the summary from last year, so if you have, it's an opportunity again to give us information about how we're supporting you and things that you see as important. So thanks for that. And then last but not least, we have Cindy. So lots of information today.
Okay, so most of you are aware of the North Star Advantage program through Hamilton County. At a previous provider meeting, we announced that we're doing a North Star series focused on trauma-informed care. So this is just a reminder that we're gonna do an information session. The stipulation is that you must have completed the first North Star series with our agency. So if you've been through North Star, you are eligible to go through the trauma-informed care series, which is really geared at helping agencies build trauma-responsive care networks within their agency and then expanding our community as a whole so that we can become a trauma-responsive community and lean on each other a little bit. Do you want to add anything?
I mean, yeah, that's basically it. So it's a journey that Community Supports and a couple other agencies went on over the past 3 years. It has completely changed how we conduct ourselves on a daily basis. So it is something that's had a huge impact on us. And we're at a point now of working with Kimmy and Dawn of really just trying to figure out how do we share this information. So it's a fantastic program. I mean, we're kind of biased, but I think it's the journey that we went on, and it's the next pathway, and a segue off of North Star.
It'll be much like North Star Advantage because that's been a huge success. Thank you, Jamie and Dawn, for that program. I have a sign-up sheet, which you are welcome to sign up to come to the information session. There's also flyers with my email address. If you have any questions about North Star Advantage or the Pathways to Resilience program, please email me. I'm more than happy to talk to you or meet with you and get to know you better and what your agency might be interested in. So.
And I would recommend too, if you haven't been through the original North Star, to touch base with Dawn or Jamie, because I think last time some people said they were interested, but we felt bad because initially we have to say you don't qualify to kind of apply for this one, but it's a great opportunity to apply to go through the original North Star.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
All right. So just a reminder that everything we talked about is posted on the website. So we have all the PowerPoints because we covered a lot of material today. So and we'll be revisiting EBB, and Jamie has something to say.
Yeah, EBB, real quick, you guys. As you know, I've talked to you before, I'm really concerned about EBB, and thanks to you guys, your feedback here. We do have efforts at the state level in regards to phase 2, which includes IDD providers, is to delay as much as we can. We have some movement. We have a new Medicaid director. It's not gonna go away. It's gonna happen. But if we can delay it while they work out the kinks, because they haven't figured out phase 1 yet, right? If we could do that, that would be great. The other part is it's a federal requirement. So we have federal advocacy going on too. What I would like to just offer to you guys is, and I can't believe I'm doing this, but if you have
It's being taped too. So.
stories and concerns, I'm open to it. If you have stories, and especially if you're in it now, or concerns, I'd like for you to send those to me by email if possible, jamie.steele@ovrs.org, and I'm going to carry them directly to Maureen Corcoran, the Director of Medicaid. I want to continue to put it out to her, so she knows what the real concerns are. We'll do that through Opera, but if you want to, please do that.
Thanks, Jamie. That's a great opportunity to capture stories and concerns so we can make it actually work when it's
Just give it right
rolling
to
out.
her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
What was the email again?
JAMIE dot STEELE at OVRS.org.
Okay, any other announcements before we go? Yeah.
Yeah, just, Matt and I talked last time about job coaching. So there's a job coaching basics training on April 18th that will be here at Kingsley from 1 to 4. Space is limited. We have 100 spots and it's almost filling up. If you have staff that want to come to that job coaching training, register. I'll send a flyer to Karen so you can register for that.
Perfect, thank you.
And I'll send out the information that we went through today in the minutes and the link to the live stream video via the provider newsletter. So if you're getting those, you should be getting, I'll send you the attachments today. And then, as Dawn said, that will be shared on the internet later today.
Well, thanks for hanging in there with us, and we're before 11, so that's an accomplishment. All right, thank you all. Take care.
Thank you.